Welcome to Wild, Wise and Whole, a podcast for women ready to reconnect with their bodies, reclaim their power and embrace their truth. I'm your host, Lydia, a somatic psychotherapist, trauma release breathwork facilitator and embodiment coach, and I'm also a woman just like you. This show dives deep into the wisdom of the feminine body and the art of living authentically. Through conversations on somatics, nervous system healing, trauma recovery, cyclical living, feminine leadership, all of the beautiful things related to being wild, wise and whole as a woman, we are going to be exploring what those topics mean in today's world and how we get to embody them. So whether you're navigating burnout, you're seeking alignment, or you're stepping into your power, this podcast is your space to heal, expand and thrive. Let's settle in. And I hope you enjoy listening to heartfelt stories, figuring out practical tools, and listening to transformative discussions that help you reconnect with your rhythms, lead with your feminine energy, and live a life rooted in truth and wholeness. Hello, welcome back to another podcast of the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. It's currently 6 a.m. It's New Year's Eve. And I just thought I would come on and record this New Year's Eve episode that I had an idea for during a yoga session yesterday. I've also been awake since 4:30, so a little bit of a backstory. You may or may not know that I have a cat called Cecil. He is the love of my life. Cecil is a cat that I have spoke about for many years on Instagram before I got him. Since I was a little girl, I just always wanted a ginger cat called Cecil. I don't know why. And in October of 2023, I got him. So he is my baby. He is my little ginger tabby. And he done an all-nighter for the first time last night. So I don't want to be dramatic, but I know for me, that is that's big, because I've slept with Cecil every single night, apart from when I've been away, but when we've been in the same space together, we have slept together every single night since I got him. So that's over a year now. And this was the first night that I had to go to sleep without him. And I did not sleep well. And I was awake at 4:30, and I was at the window like a little lost soul, shaking the biscuits to try and get him in, and there was no sight or sound of him. And my anxiety, honestly, and I know he's a cat, but he's never stayed out through the night before. So my anxiety. So yes, I was awake. I will admit that, and I will say that with my chest. I was awake at 4:30, anxious about where my cat was. So I thought, whilst it's still dark, whilst it's still quiet, I will get this podcast episode out. It feels nice to do that. So I've got my candles on, I've got my cup of coffee, and I just thought, you know what, let me just chat and create this episode with the thoughts that I had during the yoga class yesterday. I also want to say, I hope you had a nice Christmas, in some way, shape or form. This is the first year I've actually completely put my out of office on. First time in 7 years. So can we just take a minute to also celebrate that? My nervous system is working. I set that boundary with myself, that work boundary. And honestly, I cannot tell you how wonderful that has been for my nervous system over the Christmas period. So I decided to log out on Christmas Eve, and yeah, I've had nearly 7 days off all of my apps, and honestly, just drowning out that noise and that consumption, I cannot tell you how good I feel for that. And you know what? I've not missed it. I've not missed it at all. At first, when I logged out, when you notice that habit, I don't know if you've ever logged out of your social media apps, but when you do, you notice where the habit comes to just open your apps. So just small stupid things, on Christmas Eve when I was doing the Prosecco run, when I was doing the Prosecco run in Sainsbury's, I was in the queue and I just went to automatically open my Instagram app. And I was like, isn't it so fascinating how we just become so automatic to scroll or check our social media? So it's been interesting to notice that, and it's been interesting to kind of like interject that cycle, because I think before I took some much needed rest over Christmas, I was so dysregulated. Like, I was just on my apps a lot more than I wanted to be. I was just like picking up my phone all the time. Just like, yeah, I needed that break, and I needed to just like cut off that social media noise. And I'm grateful for it. So I would recommend it if you can ever do that. So yeah, so I hope you had a nice Christmas, and I hope in some way you found like a pocket of it that felt nice for you, even if it's been like overwhelming, or you've had, you know, personal things to deal with. And I think one of the other things as well is, like, I was reflecting on this, is there's such like an expectation and a pressure for people to be happy over Christmas. And I was reflecting on my experience last year, because I left my relationship 2 days before Christmas. It was the 23rd of December 2023 when I decided to leave the house that I was in. I packed all my shit up into boxes, and yeah, my dad come down and he helped me move out, and I moved back into my dad's. And I just remember thinking, like, this is not how it's meant to be over Christmas. Like, Christmas is meant to be magical. Like, I'm not meant to be sad, and this is not meant to be happening. And I just remember last year over Christmas, like, I was struggling so bad, and I was so sad. And it was only when I was reflecting back this year, I was like, the expectation that is kind of there for things to be okay, and for people to put a smile on their face, and for people to like hide their emotions over Christmas, and just everything's fine, and we smile, and it's the magic of Christmas. And I also think Christmas can be like a really lonely time. And, you know, I've experienced like the waves of that this year, and just reflecting on my first year single, and, you know, how that's felt and how that's been. And again, Christmas is like, it's so nice because it brings people together. But then if you have like strange family dynamics, or, you know, you're in a relationship that doesn't feel good for you, or there's, I don't know, there's struggles with like friends, or you're feeling lonely, or you are single, it's like, it's hard. And again, it's that thing, isn't it? It's like, do we allow ourselves to just be with that? I think Christmas brings up so much, like really so much, in terms of our emotions, and in terms of like our expectations, and the expectations that other people put on us for everything to just be perfect. And it's like, it's just another day, right? Like, it's just like, I love Christmas because I love how it brings, like, I love the time with my family. But it's like, why do we have to have such crazy expectations and pressure for everything to just go perfect? Because it's not perfect. Like, sometimes it might be perfect, but sometimes it might not be. And it's like, it's okay, right? Like, it's okay to be in the emotion that comes around Christmas. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to maybe be struggling around this time of year. It's okay to be feeling lonely. It's okay to be feeling whatever you're feeling. So I'm just more mindful now when I say about like Christmas and stuff, because I think my clients have taught me that as well, is like just listening to their experiences. It's like, again, that assumption of have the best Christmas, and like working with human beings makes you realize like there's so much below the surface, and like there's so much that people struggle with. So yeah, it's interesting. So I that's why I say I hope in one small way you was able to find, you know, some joy over the holidays. And if you had an amazing Christmas, I fucking love that for you. So I just wanted to kind of talk about this New Year expectations as we roll into January for this episode. It may sound like I feel like I'm warming back up into like talking and stuff. I feel a little bit slower today, but I don't think that's bad. But I feel like I'm just trying to like be with my thoughts, you know, like turning my brain back on, almost like plugging myself back in. But I just had this idea to come on and record this episode because I know that this time of year is bringing like goals and a reset and all of that different stuff. And for the first time this year, I'm looking at things like really differently. this is the first year where I'm not going into January with any big goals. I'm not even really seeing December as a new year, to be honest, because, and I'm going to discuss this in the podcast episode, but like, it's the fucking dead middle of winter. And it's just like the more that I become embodied and the more that I like become a cyclical woman, it just is like a make it make sense moment, you know? And I was speaking to my mum about this yesterday, actually. We went on a walk to Delamere and I was speaking to her about it. And I said, like, you wouldn't expect Mother Earth not to like wake up and bloom on the 1st of Jan because, you know, she's in a season of rest. She's shedding. It's winter. It's cold. It's dark. And it's almost like the same force. So like just the more that I live into the cycles of Mother Nature, you know, the cycles of my own body and being a human being and just really becoming like aware of that, it just doesn't make sense to me that like New Year is January. But I'm going to discuss that more in length. And again, that's not to say that it doesn't need to be a new year for you, you know, but I just think it's like there's this collective push that comes, and then with that is like expectations and so much pressure. And I just want to talk about like what that means for our nervous systems and just ways that we can like honor where we are in the, you know, the season, or where we are in our own lives, and how we can just like be more nourishing and mindful for our nervous systems. And if you do want to set some goals as well, is like if you do want to go into January with that reset, if that's something that aligns with you, it's like how can you just do that in a more mindful, I guess, like embodied way that is really bringing the piece of your nervous system into it. So like it feels more doable for you, right? Because it's like this work will allow you to just make changes that will make things feel a lot of the time like easier when you have like that understanding and that awareness. So that is what we're going to discuss in today's podcast episode. It's been 11 minutes of me just like filling you in, which I don't mind. So now I'm going to jump into the crux of the podcast episode. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to this in the world, and whatever time of day you're listening to this. So first thing that I want to say is like, when I have just bobbed back onto social media, because if you don't follow me on social media, I do something called the Sunday service, which is there's a theme, like, so the themes that I'm experiencing for the week, I find quotes that kind of like represent those themes. So I put a lot of time and effort into that post, which people might not think. But if there's things that have just been alive for me, it's almost like a snapshot of the things that I've been experiencing throughout the week. And I just find like gorgeous quotes that kind of represent that. And it's my Sunday service, and it's just like, take what you need. And it really seems to like land with my audience and my community, which is really nice. And so I popped back on for the last Sunday service of December, and instantly like my feed was just like flooded with goals and how to change your mindset and all of this different stuff. And I was like, okay, like there it is, that energy that I decided to just tap out from. And listen, it's not a bad thing, but it's just like, I just maybe want to give a different perspective. So January comes with a collective push to start fresh, right? Like it's almost, when the clock strikes 12, it's almost like that Cinderella effect. It's like, because we flip into January the 1st, it's like everything should be brand new and we start fresh. And we set big goals, and we might set a lot of big goals. So we have like personal, professional, maybe there's love life goals, all of these different things. And we basically want to overhaul our lives. So that to me now, when I think about that, it's just fucking ridiculous, because I just think this concept of flipping into January, literally the clock going to 12 o'clock, and it's almost like we need to have all our shit together. And the pressure that brings is just wild to me. And I think maybe for the first time this year, I'm aware of that and I'm noticing that and I'm reflecting on that, because I was always the person who was journaling, setting big fucking goals, like had my year mapped out with things that I wanted to achieve. You know, I'd have my small goals, then I'd have my really big goals. And that for me was like, I become so attached to those things and I didn't realize it, but it's only now when I reflect back, like I was really attached to those goals. And in some way, like they meant something about me. So the minute that I come off track with that goal, or the minute I felt like I wasn't achieving that goal, it would mean something about me because there was an attachment to that goal. So I know we see people talk a lot about detachment on social media. You may do. In spiritual books, you'll hear people talk a lot about detaching from goals. And I don't think goals are bad. I don't think they're bad at all. But my perspective is like, why are we setting 55,000 goals? And like, what's the impact of that on our nervous systems, right? Because there's this piece around doing too much too fast. And when we think about that from a nervous system perspective, it's going to overload the nervous system. So we have just come out of a period that is extremely dysregulating. Whether that's dysregulating because it's been amazing, because we've been socializing, because we've been, partying, we've been in connection with people, we've just like whatever it is about this period, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's difficult, whether it's restful, like whatever it is, there's a thread of dysregulation in it because we spent a lot of money, we have no routine, we're up the wall with our food, maybe there's stress around the money that you spent, we're socializing a lot more. And when we think about what's happening in Mother Earth at the minute, it's winter. Like 2-3 days before Christmas, we transitioned into winter. We had the winter solstice. So that's the symbolic time of, winter coming, really transitioning into this season. So it's like nature is such a regulating thing for our nervous systems, right? So it's like when we're kind of out of sync with nature, it can create like this low level dysregulation because we're all the energy connecting out all the time, doing all the things, like loads of energy in the day. But what's being admitted to us in Mother Earth is stillness, slowness, introspection, a season of rest, a season of things shedding. It's essentially we're in a season of death because the rebirth is going to come in about 7 weeks. So it's like when we see that, it's like our bodies are so in tune with nature, especially women's bodies, because we're cyclical beings. So it's like even that element can cause some level of dysregulation, right? Like, and we might not be acutely aware of this, but it's just like nature is a thread that our nervous systems will lean on. Why do you think so many people get out in nature? Because it regulates your nervous system. It's so good for your body. And so it's even that, right? So like all of these factors are coming into play. So this is quite like a dysregulating time. Our nervous system's a bit all over the place. Our bodies are a bit all over the place. So then like to switch instantly into doing all of these things and all of these goals and literally changing our behaviors overnight, it's like it's a lot. It's a lot for our nervous systems to go like, oh shit, okay, right, now I've got all of these other things to like hold, and there's restrictions and there's goals, and it just like it's a lot for your nervous system, right? So I think if we just acknowledge that and acknowledge the fact that it can leave people feeling overwhelmed, it can leave you feeling disconnected, or it can leave you feeling behind, which I think is something else that we don't really talk about. Is like, what is the expectation for you to have to set big goals come January? Like, what is the expectation that you're putting on yourself, and do you feel behind if you don't do that? I'm just finishing my coffee. I think also it can leave people with this sense of, I saw a post yesterday saying, I thought I didn't achieve anything in 2024. And then it was like a list of all of these things that have been achieved. And I just reflected on that post because I thought, isn't it interesting how like even when we achieve things, quote unquote, achieve things that are amazing, you know, like external things that we achieve, things that are really personal for us that we achieve, there can still be this sense of feeling behind, or there can still be this sense of feeling like you're running out of time or you've not done enough. And I can say, hand on my heart, this is the first fucking year that I'm ending when I'm so unbelievably fucking content with where I'm at, how this year has been, and who I've been this year, and how things have gone. And what's really interesting about that is this has been one of the most difficult, self-shattering years I've ever had in my life. Like, it has been beyond anything I've ever experienced. So much harder than when I lost my nan. And that's probably one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. And it's also been one of the most beautiful, expansive, joyful years of my life. You know, like that light and dark, that ebb and flow. So it's like, to end the year and just feel really content and just okay with everything that has been is like, I think that's super interesting, because I've never felt that way before. And isn't it interesting that I've never felt that way before, but I've always been striving. You know, I've always had the big goals. I've always wanted the big things. I've always been thinking about like success and wanting success, and even thinking about like the difference in how I approached my healing journey. It was quite masculine. It was doing the journaling. It was doing all the things. It was just fast and it was hard. And this year I've really slowed down. This year I've been super intentional. This year I've just been fucking present, man. I've just been present with what's alive. I've been present with the pain. I've been present with the joy. I've been present with the expansion. I've been present with the burnout. And being present with everything, I just feel like has helped me get to this place at the end of the year when I'm like, I feel okay. Like, I feel content. I don't feel like I'm behind, because what am I behind in? You know? And it's like the minute I start to shift my awareness and think about, like, I want to do that and I want to do this and I want to do, and I become like attached to that, I noticed there's like almost like a low level anxiety that comes, because it like almost defaults me into the comparison trap and the pressure trap, and not wanting to be behind compared to other people that I see in social media. So it's like being aware of that, I think, is so like special that I'm able to do that. And I think it's just like, as well for you, like, can you notice how any of this that I'm saying, like, how does this land for you and how does this resonate for you, you know? And the reason why I want to link it to your nervous system is because I think these expectations, they cause stress and dysregulation in the body. And the way that they do that is because I think we default into, you know, different patterns around New Year. I think a lot of people, and myself included in the past, we kind of start out in that sympathetic, right? So let's start to bring your nervous system into this and break it down a little bit more. So New Year's Eve is coming, January's coming, right? You have that like sympathetic drive, that like fight or flight starts to kick in. You'll hear me say this a lot. You'll hear me talk about this on social media. Your fight or flight is not bad. That's called your sympathetic drive. That's your mobilizing energy, right? That's your move forward energy. Great energy. We want that coming back into January. We've got work, we've got school runs, we've got things that we want to do. We've probably, a lot of us, been a little bit slower over Christmas, a little bit more restful. So that sympathetic drive is good. However, when we bombard ourselves with goals, right, and when we overwhelm ourselves with goals, and when we try to do everything all at once, it can kick us into that fight or flight. And that's where we overcommit to resolutions or goals. So instead of just setting one goal or two goals or an intention, what we might do is set, like I've just said before, me in the past, mini goals, big goals, a year to achieve all of that. That's an overcommitment, because might it have been achievable? Maybe. But when I come to January, I know I've got habits that I need to put in place for me to achieve 8 goals. And I've got things I need to track for me to achieve 8 goals. And I'm still trying to deal with my life. I'm still trying to adjust back into the January. Sorry, I just got an alert about my hard drive and I did not know what that was. I'm still trying to adjust back into January, into routine, all of these different things. You know, taking more. The nervous system is naturally, when we go back into January, we're taking more on. So it can kick us into that flight till we overcommit to resolutions or goals. I'm going to go to the gym 7 times a week. I'm going to be up at fucking 5:45. I was actually speaking to my mum about this over the Christmas holidays, and she was like, right, come January, I'm setting my alarm for 5 a.m. every morning. Bearing in mind, my mum is doing all of the things. Like, she is a chronic fight or flight, stuck in overdrive, you know, sympathetic. That's where I got it from. Operates in stress. Long days, working, doing uni, learning how to drive, running a house on her own, looking after my little brother, like taking care of the dog. She's doing all of the things. I'm going to be awake at 5 a.m. every morning. And I just kind of huffed and I was like, okay. She was like, don't be negative. I said, Mum, I'm not being negative. I said, I'm really not. I said, but you do all of the things and you need your sleep and you're overcommitting to getting up at 5 a.m. And I said, I already know, and I'm saying this in the most loving way, you're not going to be able to stick to that. I said, I said, if you want that spaciousness in the morning, I said, commit to doing it. Just 1 morning a week to start. And then you can maybe do it 2-3 mornings a week, right? So you might wake up at 5, wake up at 7, wake up at 5, wake up at 7, just to recoup. Also, she's going through the menopause. Just to recoup some rest, you know, like you need that. No, every morning, up at 5, then I'm going to stretch. I'm going to do this before I have my coffee. I'm going to make my juice. And I thought, okay. No, I don't want to seem like the shower of shits on your goals, but I already know, listening to you, you're already operating under way over capacity. You're already stressed. Your nervous system is already holding all of the things. To now add all of that on top of it, overcommitting, and you're just kicking yourself into that flight mode, into that fight or flight, sorry. You're kicking yourself automatically into that stress response. And that is a prime example of ways that we might overcommit to resolutions or goals. And then what's really interesting is, because I know my mom inside and out, I know that if she falls off from that, she will then beat herself up about it, because it's the attachment, right? To like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that. And it's what doing those habits mean and the result of those habits, which, yes, getting up at 5, she would have a space before she starts her busy day. But you have to have an element of being realistic with it and not overcommitting to make it attainable for your nervous system and to make it sustainable. That's the piece that people don't understand. And when you bring your nervous system into this work, you can set goals and you can set intentions that you are able to sustain, that you are able to maintain, and that your nervous system feels good doing. And I've spoke about this at length in terms of things that I've done this year and behaviours that I've changed that have felt so good for my nervous system, which has meant it's allowed me to maintain that for the year. The next thing that can happen is we can kick into flight. So we avoid or we procrastinate on commitments. So what I see happen is we start the new year strong. A lot of us in that sympathetic. Last swig of my coffee. We start the year strong in that stress response, all hyped in our sympathetic. And then what happens is a couple of weeks in, go into flight. So we have the best intentions, and then we realise if we overwhelm ourselves or we overcommit, it's actually hard to stick to those, because then real life comes back in, right? The commutes, the kids, the relationship, the dark nights, the cold mornings, work. And it all starts to just like land in the body. So then what can happen is we can avoid or we can procrastinate on commitments. So this is where it starts to become harder for your nervous system to stay consistent because you've overcommitted yourself to your resolutions. And then you go into that flight mode. And then the other thing that can happen is you freeze. You just completely fall off. So you feel stuck. You feel like you don't want to do anything. So this is kind of like a cycle that I see, but also you could just be starting the year depending on what's going on in your nervous system in one of these states, you know? So you might be starting your year with a low level freeze in your nervous system, feeling stuck, feeling like overwhelmed, feeling nothing really, feeling quite flat, feeling like there's no motivation or drive, and that's okay. Or you might be starting the new year feeling in the flight mode, so you're avoiding, you're procrastinating setting the goals, but you're going on social media, you're seeing other people, what they're doing, which is causing further disconnect, which is making you feel a little bit behind, which then could be dropping you a little bit into that freeze, feeling stuck, internalizing that inner self-critical voice coming up. So these are just like ways that your nervous system can be present as we transition into new year and when you set your goals. The next thing I want to talk about is like why winter isn't a time for big goals. So nature, I've just spoke about this, but nature is a guide. And I think nature is something that when we live in sync with it, it's like a phenomenal teacher. It's a phenomenal regulator. It's a phenomenal thread to a more fulfilled life, I think. And I know that might sound dramatic, but I really believe that, like, when we fight against what's happening in nature, especially if you're from a country listening to this and you get like seasons, you know, like depends on where you are, but in the UK we get like very prominent, well, we're meant to get very prominent seasons. So when we fight against that, it causes some dysregulation in the system. Women, especially cyclical beings, we have our menses, we have our cycles, we have our bleeds. The phases of our bleeds are very similar in terms of the seasons that we see in nature, in a spring, in an autumn, in a summer, in a winter. So nature is just such a great teacher. It's like a silent master that's there every single day. But as human beings, we don't really listen to it and we don't take guidance from it. And I think what's really interesting, and I spoke to this before, is like, who come up with the concept that New Year's is in the middle of fucking winter? Like, I would love to understand where that come from, because I just don't think it makes sense. Like, the trees aren't growing leaves, animals aren't rushing around, the flowers have died, the nights are still dark, it's about to get colder, the mornings are still dark. Also, one of the other things is that build up to Christmas is gone. This is a time of year when we had transition into January where people struggle. People struggle with winter. You know, there's the seasonal seasonal affective disorder, is it called, where people's moods get really, really impacted by the lack of sunshine, the lack of vitamin D. And it's a time where we really, our bodies and our minds just want to hunker down. We've just had the build up to Christmas. Even though the nights are dark, even though it's getting colder, there's this thing that keeps us going. There's this energetical thing. We have Halloween, we have bonfire night, then we have the build up to Christmas. There's like an excitement, right? There's things to keep us going. There's events that are bringing people together. You get to January, there's nothing. And that kind of leaves us in a bit of a, oh fuck. the dust is settling a little bit after the last 3 months that we've just had, with things to look forward to, decorate the house for, come together for, go out for. And this is a period where we should just be letting that land. We should be recouping our energy. We should be coming a little bit more into stillness. We should be slowing things down for the next 6 weeks. And then when we transition into spring, that's where we start to awaken. And I think even transitioning into that period of nothingness can leave the nervous system a little bit like, oh, well, what now? And I wonder if there's something about setting goals that like anchors us into that forward moving. As human beings, we struggle to be in stillness. We struggle to slow down. And I wonder if there's something about needing the goals, needing the reset, needing the new me, new year, new me. Because it keeps us moving forward. It keeps us thinking about the future, and actually it disconnects us from presence. It disconnects us from stillness. It disconnects us from slowing down. And our nervous systems need that as much as they need the goals and the habits and all of these different things. They need, or it needs, your body needs, and you need as a human being. You need space to step into the void of stillness and to be present. And winter is the perfect time to do that. This is a time where we should be nourishing our nervous systems, where we should be connecting to our deeper needs as human beings, not fucking external goals, just like, not that. I want to make 10k this year, or, I want to fucking lose a stone this year. It's like, yeah, okay, do that. Do that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not what I'm saying. But our deeper needs as human beings, this is a time where we should be nourishing that. This is a time where we should be given like our, as Maslow calls it, like our hierarchy of needs, like our basic level of needs. Sleep, rest, nourishing foods, warmth, connection. And isn't it so interesting? Like, that's the thing. That's the piece that we miss as we roll into January. And it's super interesting. And then it's like, when I say all that, it's thinking about then the impact of that on your nervous system. Like, where does your nervous system get time to restore and recharge? And yes, there's rest over Christmas, but like, it's a different kind of rest, It's like, because it's dysregulating Christmas, like I've touched upon. This period also is a beautiful time for reflection. Like, and it's interesting because it's almost like the reflection should come before New Year, But actually, when you think about it, you step into that void for 6 weeks where there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to massively be. And you have like this void of time where you're really able to reflect if you want to, if you can drop into what is being presented to you through nature and the theme that is present. If you can step into that and you can be with that, and it's fucking tough, like, don't get me wrong, it's tough, because I speak about these qualities of stillness and slowness and rest and presence, like, they're easy for us to access. They're not. They're some of the most hardest qualities for human beings to tap into, because they require you being with yourself, and they require an element of your nervous system feeling comfortable enough in those qualities. So restful healing and restful reflection, So this is such a beautiful period before spring comes again and the awakening starts to happen. It's such a nice chunk of time to just like really fucking reflect. And again, we miss that. And we miss that because we run 100 miles an hour into the new year, and we forward think, this is what I want to do for the year. But it's like, right, okay, but where's the spaciousness, Like, Like, where's the reflection? Where's the rest? And it's like giving yourself a period of time to like be in that again without it being, oh, I've been reflecting for a couple of days. It's like if you were to just step into what, the medicine that nature is offering, it's like 6 weeks is a nice period of time to not rush anything, to just let things manifest, to just let things land, to just let things ruminate and come forth, and to just take your time with the reflection. And then so it could be so different when the spring comes, right? Like when actually the new year starts to come. That's how I feel about it anyway. I feel like New Year is actually around March. I think when Mother Earth starts to reawaken, that feels like the new year for me. And imagine how different things would be if we just gave ourselves that spaciousness between now and then we stepped into reawakening. I just feel like it would be so different. And I feel like this would give us more regulated nervous systems. Honestly, I really do. And I think one of the things that you can do is, if this is resonating with you and you just want to try something different this year, I'm going to encourage you to focus on introspection rather than external achievements during the winter, and just see how that feels for you. Just see what comes up. Like, just get super curious. Like, does it bring up any limiting beliefs? Does it bring up any critical talk? Does it make you feel like you're behind? Just anything that you notice, or do you actually find it quite nourishing to take the foot off the gas in winter? And that's not saying that you don't have to do anything at all. But it's just being more in sync with nature, and it's just being more intentional. So maybe for the next 6 weeks, instead of focusing on an external goal, there's just like an inner intention that you can work towards, or you can just be present with. Instead of work towards, you can just be present with, and you can just sit with, and you can just be intentional with. Like, every day, just wake up and just like, how can you have an intention that feels good for your nervous system, that you can embody every day and you can live into every day? Because that compound effect, and I talk about this in R&R with the girls, I talk about the nervous system work and the compound effect. We're so used to things being hard and fast results. We're so used to wanting things to be like immediate, and wanting that immediate gratification. And if there's one thing I can say with your nervous system, it is not fucking going to give you immediate gratification. You have to show up for yourself, and you have to put the work in, and you have to build safety and trust like you would in a relationship, Like, you couldn't just meet somebody and have that immediate, okay, so trust me now. It's like that has to be built, and the same applies with your nervous system. It's the compound effect. It's showing up. It's the small things that you do every single day that create big changes. You're going to wake up one day and go, fuck, I feel so different. And that feeling that you get in your body is like joy and pride and gratitude. And like, those moments that I've had this year have brought and continue to bring tears to my eyes, where I'm in a situation and it just lands in my body that it's different, and I'm different, and my nervous system feels different. And it's because of the commitment and the baby steps that I've taken throughout the year, just continuously showing up. So your nervous system, one day it is going to reward you. So it's not immediate gratification. It's not hard. It's not fast. In all honesty, it's not a big sexy result, because it takes time and it takes commitment. But my fucking God, does it change your life? Does it make you feel so different? Does it give you like a peace and a presence and a connection to yourself that like is hard to get when you feel dysregulated, or you're disconnected from yourself, or you're operating in stress, or you're feeling shut down? It's like, a feeling is so priceless. So it's like showing up with that, that just that commitment and that love and that curiosity for yourself every day. It has such a profound effect. And I think we can lose kind of sight of that, because it's not heal your nervous system in 2 weeks, you know? So, and I think we've become conditioned, especially as we go into January, we've become conditioned to see a timeline, to see in 6 weeks I can have that, in 4 weeks I can have that, in 2 days I can have that. And it's like, your nervous system doesn't really work like that. You know, it needs love, it needs patience, it needs commitment, it needs time, it needs presence. It needs you to show up, and it slowly, you know, if it's too much too soon, it's going to overwhelm your nervous system. So I just want to talk a little bit now about ways you can soothe and reconnect after Christmas. And I've spoke a little bit about this, you know, why Christmas dysregulates us, because it's just complete overstimulation. So the socialising, the spending, the eating, the lack of routine, all of that stuff is dysregulating for our nervous systems. And like I've touched on, even if your Christmas was fucking amazing, it has like a dysregulating effect, because as human beings, routine and habits soothe our nervous system. You know, sleep patterns, all of these different things, they soothe and they regulate our nervous system. So it can leave our nervous system feeling a little bit frayed, a little bit over capacity, and just in need of some recalibration, which links to what I've just said about winter, about reflection, about all of that stuff. So if you think about that again, not to harp on about it, but if we're already in a period that's quite dysregulating, January comes, goals, in 24 hours, we think we reset the clock, and we then add more stuff. So it's like going to the gym and clean eating and just, I'm going to show up on social media and do content X amount, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. It's like your nervous system needs the downtime, and it needs to build capacity. It needs to create spaciousness before it can take anything else on. Because imagine it like a cup, right? I use this analogy with the girls, but in R&R, imagine over Christmas, like your cup is overflowing, right? You're over capacity, it's overflowing. There's just like a lot going on. And imagine you're then trying to like pour more into that cup. Well, it's not going to fucking go in the cup, is it? It's going to overspill because it's already full. You need to empty some before you can pour more in. And the same applies for your nervous system. So if you're overfilling and you're trying to like put more in, and that's your habits, and that's your goal, and that's your reset, and that's your new behaviours that you're doing, and that's your journaling 4 times a week, and then you're going to go to the gym, or you're my mom and you're getting up at 5 a.m. It's like all of those things are adding up, but they're just overspilling because your cup has no room to hold it. Same for your nervous system. Same, but different, you know. So some tools that you can do to soothe your nervous system. So one of the things that I think works incredible is rethinking how you approach the new year. I spoke at length about that in this podcast. So if anything resonates for you from that, you know, I've just said then you can focus for the next 6 weeks on just being more intentional with the inner work. And then come the spring, you could set more external goals or external intentions and work towards those. You can create rest without guilt. So again, thinking about how January feels for you. Do you feel that go energy? How would it feel to create intentional rest and create space for rest? Again, I speak about this in R&R. I'm going to be speaking about this in the webinar that I'm doing in about 2 weeks time, 2.5 weeks time. I'll put the link in the bio if you want to sign up for that. It's going to be a free webinar on nervous system healing. But, and this is one of the things that I teach you in R&R, is that if your nervous system is so used to being dysregulated or being stuck in stress, then rest can feel uncomfortable for you. Rest without guilt can feel uncomfortable. Rest without shame can feel uncomfortable. True rest, where you're present, can feel really uncomfortable because your nervous system's not used to that, right? It's not used to slowing down. But this is where real regulation happens, when you drop into these qualities. One of the other big regulating factors as well, which I speak about in R&R, and I invite the girls to practice this, is being in solitude. Solitude is different from loneliness. So again, depending on how you've been feeling the past couple of weeks, loneliness is an emotion that we feel, right? Solitude is an act of being alone. And that is profoundly fucking regulating for your nervous system. And again, a lot of people find it uncomfortable to be on their own. So something that you could bring in the new year when you rest is alone time, solitude. Massive regulator for your nervous system. It's going to give you that space to have restful reflection, for your body to recoup and recalibrate. But again, I want you to notice what's coming up for you as I say these things. And I want you to notice, if you do try to implement some of these things that I'm talking about, how does this feel for you to do this? And that's the piece, okay? So start to bring the somatic element into this and notice, how does it feel for you to do this? What are you noticing? Without judgment, what are you noticing in your body? Ground and practices. Again, thinking about where we are in this season, we're in nature. Ground and practices that allow you to soothe your nervous system. Time in nature. I know it's winter, I know it's dark, I know it's cold, but getting out in nature is such a big regulator. Sitting quietly outside, walking with no podcast on, not overloading yourself with information. People don't understand how dysregulating that is for your nervous system. And I know that because this year is a year where I've hardly listened to any podcast episodes. I've taken time off social media. I've reduced the amount of stimulation that I'm receiving in pockets, right? And honestly, the difference it makes to my nervous system is like profound. The difference it makes to not listen to podcasts is like, I might listen to the odd one if I'm really interested in it, but I don't overconsume information anymore because it's just like, it's so dysregulating. It's amazing that we have access to all of this information, but for our nervous systems to be taking that much information in is a lot. And again, thinking about New Year, a lot of us will be consuming podcast episodes, we'll be reading books, we'll be doing all of the things. It's like, can you just carve out some time to just be without stimulation? Even if it's just 15 minutes, even if it's going on a walk and you just don't listen to a podcast and instead you listen to the sounds of nature, you listen to the wind, you listen to the birds, you listen to your feet as they hit the floor. If it's icy, you listen to the crunch of the grass, you listen to things that are in your external environment, because this is going to bring you into presence, anchor you into presence, and it's going to regulate your nervous system. Thinking about Christmas, it's overstimulating, right? There's twinkly lights everywhere. There's a lot of noise. There's like, we're probably consuming a lot more, like spending a lot more time watching TV. There's music on, our phones are on. We're in cafes, they're busy. Restaurants, they're busy. We might be out clubbing. So like, all of these things that we do, I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying, like, from a nervous system perspective, it's an overload of information. So if we can just find pockets to like allow our bodies to recoup after the stimulation we've just received, like, that's amazing. You know, that's like a win that we can do for our nervous system. And it's so interesting because I was speaking to one of my besties, Annie, over Christmas, and we were both like, this is the first year we've been like super mindful of our nervous systems, and we both just said like we found Christmas so overstimulating to the point where we both took our decorations down on the 28th. And I noticed this just before Christmas, like my Christmas tree was just like fucking irritating the life out of me, and I didn't know why. And I was speaking to Annie and I said to her like, I want to take my Christmas tree down, and I don't know what it is, but it's irritating me every time I turn it on. And she was like, it's the light, it's the twinkle of the light, and it's having that much light when it's dark outside. It's having that much light on all of the time, like it's overstimulating. And I was like, what the hell? Like, you would never notice that, like you would never know that. But it's only because we've become like more attuned, and it was. So when I come home after Christmas, the first thing I done when I walked in this flat, I took the Christmas tree down. And I cannot tell you, I just like, I took the biggest like breath in. I just dropped my shoulders. And I was just like, oh, I can just settle, because I've got like candles on, I have like low lights on, and once it goes dark, that's what I tend to do. I don't have big lights on. And again, it's thinking about how our bodies are connecting to nature and how our bodies are connecting to what's going on in the external. Like when it's dark, when we have bright lights on, it overstimulates us. And it's like, I know as I'm saying this, it might sound crazy, but honestly, it's so true. So just even like the Christmas decorations, having them on has like a stimulating effect on our nervous system. So it's thinking about when we go into the new year, like honouring our nervous systems. It's like, where can we find that space where we're lessening the stimulation? So it's like even spending time sitting in a room when it goes dark for like, even if you want to start with 5 minutes, right? And you just light a candle, you have no big lights on, no lamps on, and you just allow yourself to sit and do some breath work, some soothing breath work to regulate your nervous system. Parasympathetic breath, coherent breathing, breathing in and out at equal lengths, taking an inhale in through the nose, really gently, really softly for 5 to 6 beats. Exhaling out really softly, softening the jaw. You can exhale out through the nose as well if you want to. Keeping everything nice and soft. Breathing in and out for either 5 or 6. As you do that, soften the jaw, drop the shoulders, soften the spine, soften the body. That is so regulating for your nervous system. Imagine you've done that every single day for 5 minutes before you went to sleep. It would make a huge difference. So it's like little things like this, which are so much easier to implement, are going to have a profound effect. Gentle movement, stretching, yoga, all of these things will ground you into your body, you know? And even if you are doing all of the things come Jan, it's like if you can just implement some of these nice techniques for your nervous system and not feeling like you have to do it. More so if you just see it as like a nourishing practice for yourself, just something that you get to do to soothe your nervous system, to just recalibrate your nervous system. It's like that is going to also help and just give your nervous system a little bit of a buffer after the Christmas period. And then just again thinking about how you can rethink goals. So when we're dysregulated, just to wrap up what I've said, hopefully you're understanding that it can be more unattainable to stick to your goals, because if you're dysregulated, like I've just used that cup analogy, setting goals from that space, it's hard to achieve. And again, I know this from my personal experience this year when I achieved everything I journal. Like, I'm not joking. The stuff that I've achieved this year, I used to spend so long journaling about. I worked so hard to try to achieve the things that I've done this year. And you know what? The things that I've achieved this year, professionally, personally, I've worked hard for, but in a way it's felt effortless. And you know why? Because the things that have come to me this year, I never sat and thought about those in December of 2023. I had fucking nothing coming into the new year last year. Nothing. I didn't even have a bed in my dad's year. And I remember thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? What am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. All my stuff's in boxes downstairs. I don't even have a bed. I have nowhere to live. Well, I have my dad's, but like I'm in my dad's in a box room. What am I going to do? I've got no money in the bank. I've got less than a handful of clients. What do I do? Could you imagine? I set goals from that space. Could you imagine? And I remember thinking, right, that I'm going to give myself 6 months. And the only thing I'm going to commit to doing consistently, it's a non-negotiable, I'm going to go to therapy every 2 weeks. That's the thing that I'm going to work on for 6 months. I'm just going to work on myself. And everything else, I'll figure out as I go along. And this year, through working on my nervous system and working on myself, so much has come to me. So much. And why it's been beautiful and why I'm so passionate about this work and I'm such a believer in this work is because it's come to me. It's felt almost effortless. And it's come to me because I've worked on myself. And it's come to me because I've just committed. That's been my commitment this year, just to myself. And my life has changed in 365 days, like drastically, in ways that I did not even think was going to be possible last year. The peace, the joy, the gratitude, the expansion, the depth, the connection with self, the love that I feel, the trust, the faith, is anything I've ever felt before in my life. And my nervous system has given me that, working on my nervous system. And like, also don't forget, I experienced something very traumatic in January. And I share that because it gives credit to this work, to your nervous system. When you start to live your life with an awareness and a knowledge and an understanding of your nervous system, it's fucking profound in ways that I could never imagine. So things become easier and they become more sustainable, and you can show up for yourself so differently, and it will change your life when you do it from a way that honors your nervous system, compared to when you're doing it in a way where you're dysregulated and you're overloading yourself and you're overloading your nervous system, and things are not sustainable. Like, it's a lot, and then that creates a story about you, and it's not about you. Like, you're so capable of anything that you want to achieve. Like, you can achieve that. I believe that. If you're suffering now, if you're experiencing trauma, if you're going through something, if you're struggling, if whatever it is that your heart desires, you are so capable of that. But what I'm trying to do through my work is change the narrative as women of how we achieve the things that we want, and how we do that in a way where we are embodied, where we don't sacrifice our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual mental well-being, where we don't operate in stress, where we don't operate from an unhealthy masculine, where we're not in our wounded feminine, where we are living in accordance with our bodies, with nature, with just like our authenticity. Like, it's so possible because I've been on that journey this year. And that's why I'm so passionate about the work that I do. And it takes us out of that all or nothing thinking. Like, we don't have to be in that black or white thinking. We can find the nuances, like, we don't have to like have this story playing out that it's one or the other. It's all or nothing. It's I'm on it or I'm not. I'm a failure or I'm successful. Like, there's nuances, there's black and white, light and dark to everything. And when we can step away from that, and when we can bring our nervous system into this process, it takes us away from that perfectionism. Do you know, I was saying this the other day, actually, I've not felt fear for months. My default used to be fear, because I was so in my head about stuff. I was so like, I was just like operating in such a high stress state that I was so critical. The inner critic was loud. I was fearful that I wasn't going to achieve the things that I wanted to. I felt behind. I felt exhausted with it all. And I didn't realize, even when I felt amazing, there was a low level of like just feeling this burnout, because I was always operating in like that sympathetic, that like fight or flight. And I was saying the other day, when we closed off a mastermind that I'm in, like a business mastermind with my client Leah, I was saying, I've not felt fear for months. I don't wake up and feel fearful anymore. Like, I don't feel fearful about my business. I don't feel any fear about the things I would like to achieve, my vision for my business. I just feel really trusting, and I feel okay that like, no matter what happens on the external, like, I'm happy and I'm okay. And I think that is a gift in this day and age, to feel that way, regardless of what's happening on the external, regardless of anything. It's like, I feel so at peace and trusting and different in myself, and like I have this sense of pride and gratitude that isn't attached to these external goals. And I think when we bring our nervous system into this process, like, this is what we get to do, and we get to lose the perfectionism, we get to lessen the need to overachieve or achieve all of the things. We get to do it in a way where we don't feel burnt out. Like, we get to choose anew with our bodies and our nervous system. So an alternative approach is focus on small intuitive steps rather than drastic changes, which I spoke about. Set some intentions. So an example of this is like, instead of saying I'm going to work out 5 days a week, I'll listen to what my body needs each day. That might be just starting with 2 days a week where you work out. So instead of overloading yourself to 5, it could be 2. And then, like I said to my mum, instead of getting up at 5 a.m. every single morning and thinking and putting the pressure on yourself to do that, it could be 5 one morning, then it could be 6, then it could be 5. So you just alternate it. And also bring your menstrual cycle into this, right? So like, allow yourself the space to tweak things and change things on the week when you're in your inner autumn and you're in your inner winter, because you're not going to have the same capacity. Your nervous system doesn't have the same capacity, because your menstrual cycle and your nervous system are in relationship with each other. So you don't have the same capacity. So just honor that. So even if when you go into the new year, each week is a little bit different for you, depending on, where you're up to in your cycle, and just tweaking things, tweaking your workouts, tweaking the time that you wake up, just whatever feels like is appropriate for you. And then align your goals with your nervous system. So check in with your body before you set that goal, or if you do want to work towards something, like, does this feel expansive or constrictive? Does this feel like something I can steadily commit to? Again, I spoke about this in terms of also how this work has changed my money mindset. Phenomenal. How much I haven't even done money mindset work this year, but my nervous system has completely fucking changed my relationship with money. It's like, leaves me speechless. But one of the things I would also do is I would invest money, again, thinking about that hard and fast, that big sexy thing that we do where we invest money. And I would invest money into like sure pockets of things. And this year I've invested in a couple of things, but they've been smaller investments. So therapy sessions with Matt, regular but monthly bodywork sessions, and yoga. They're the 3 things that I have from January to December invested in every single month. And they've added up over the year. Of course they have. But what it's allowed me to do is consistently show up for those things every single month, which means my nervous system has felt more connected. I've been able to build a sense of safety. I've been able to anchor into those practices because my nervous system knows it's not in and out. I've been able to build a relationship through the therapy, through the body work that I've had. I've been able to understand yoga. I've been able to understand the benefits, the deep benefits of yoga. And I've just been getting my time served and showing up. There's been no big sexy goal I've been working towards. There's been no big fucking outcome that I want to achieve in 6 months. And I'm not saying this is bad, by the way, but I'm just giving you a different perspective. And I've just shown up with a curiosity. And it's meant that I've been able to invest in myself. I've been able to live into my intention for this year. And it's felt good for my nervous system. So when I paid those payments, it hasn't made me feel stressed. It hasn't made me feel worried about the investment. It's felt good for my nervous system. And that is regulating in itself. That has helped me heal my relationship with money, which is wild. And it's been something I've been able to maintain. and I'm reaping the rewards tenfold from that. So I think this is just like an example of how we can align goals with our nervous system, and how we can do actions that feel expansive for our nervous system, and then allow us to drop into a process. Again, thinking about slowly, thinking about the process with yourself, with your healing. Your nervous system appreciates slowness. Your nervous system appreciates longevity. So when you commit to something, or when you show up for something, and when you just see it as like a journey rather than having this big huge goal at the end of it or wanting to achieve it overnight, your nervous system is going to land, and your nervous system is going to reap the rewards of that. That is an expansive behavior and action that you can do. And checking in with, like, am I doing that because I want to, or because I think I should? This has turned out a long episode, and I didn't mean it. And again, thinking about slowing down helps you expand capacity for your growth and your productivity. So you will actually, again, this is something that I'm rewiring people's minds and bodies to understand this in R&R. People think hard and fast is the best for growth and productivity. The hustle from your nervous system, of course, we have to have times where we hustle. I hustled to fuck for the first 6 months of the year because I needed to have an apartment. I needed to have a place to live. And then I burnt out. And my nervous system was like, I'm going to show you and I'm going to teach you that you can't keep fucking doing the same thing, Lydia, and expecting a different outcome. I burnt out. You know that story. I was signed off work for 2 weeks. And I was hustling. And that hustle mode is sustainable until it isn't. It feels good until it doesn't. You can't stay in that. It's got no longevity. Hustle has no longevity, especially in the female body, unless you're operating flushed with cortisol and flushed with adrenaline. Yes, you can be productive. Yes, you can work hard. Yes, you can have the go, go, go. That's your sympathetic drive. You want that in your nervous system. But when you're consistently operating in that, your nervous system's not going to, it's going to one day tell you, I told you this wasn't the right thing to do. So when you slow down, you actually expand your capacity for growth and productivity. You're actually going to achieve the things that you want in a more sustainable way. And this is what I talk about. This is what I'm teaching in the feminine leadership with business owners, with coaches, with women, is this mindset of hustling, doing more, go all the time. That's going to get us the thing that we want to achieve. And I'm like, there's another way to do it, where you don't actually have to sacrifice your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health and well-being. And you're going to get there. And you're going to get there in a way that's sustainable. And you're going to get there in a way where your nervous system can hold that. It can hold more. That's why I've been able to make more money this year than I've ever made in my business before, because my nervous system can hold that. It can hold the success. It can hold the clients. It can hold the money. Because I have the capacity. And this is all the stuff I'm teaching in R&R, is about like how your nervous system links to success, how your nervous system links to being able to hold more money, hold more love, hold more, whatever it is for you that you want more of, right? And it's like you get to do it in a different way without the hustle. So that is just what I want to end with. And I just want to end with this little message of letting you know that this January, you don't have to force anything. You don't have to fix yourself. You don't have to prove yourself. You are enough right here, right now. And let this be a time to rest, reconnect, and trust your own rhythms of your life. Okay? So I hope this episode has been helpful for you. It was a longer episode. I didn't intend it to be this long, but I guess I have had so much to say, which is interesting. And if this does resonate with you and you're ready to start the year from a place of connection and ease, my Restore and Reconnect program is starting again on the 3rd of January. So that is a 14-week this time, nervous system healing journey. And I'll be doing a free webinar around the 3rd week of Jan on nervous system healing. So if you want to, you can bring yourself along to that for free. There's the link in the bio below to sign up to that for free. And if you are interested, if an intention of yours is to work on your nervous system for 2025 and you want to build safety, you want to have balance in your life, and you just want to like build more connection from a nervous system level with yourself, with your life, with the people around you, then the link is also below to book a free call. We can have a chat. So I hope this episode resonates. I hope you find some kind of nuggets to take away from it. I'll put some journal prompts below in the bio for you, and if you made it to the end of this episode, like, good for you, because this is an hour and 14 minutes, which is long. But enjoy, my loves, and I shall be back in the new year with more episodes. So have a lovely new year, have a lovely January, and I shall see you soon. Take care. 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 Soon. Take care.